This channel is devoted to helping 16 to 25-year-old guys to become high-quality men. It covers all sorts of topics, but at no time do I want to tell you what to do with your life. It's your life. But there are a lot of topics that are very relevant to young men that don't get talked about, and one of them is your self-esteem. Having a healthy one is so incredibly important, but most young guys never actively think about it or do much to deliberately improve it. When I uploaded my first video about self-esteem, it instantly generated thousands of views, which for a new channel like this is quite interesting. Please like and subscribe to Modern Man Academy. The more young guys who do, the more YouTube will put these videos in front of other young guys like you. Then everyone benefits. In this video, I'm going to share more thoughts about understanding your self-esteem and how that's linked to general levels of male self-confidence. Both of these have a huge effect on the personal decisions you make or don't make in your future life. People with self-esteem and self-confidence issues tend to talk themselves out of future opportunities by convincing themselves that perhaps they don't deserve anything better. So in this second video about self-esteem, let's explore more about what it is and how your past and your current thinking patterns and behavior could be weakening your self-esteem and self-confidence without you even realizing it. So a question, on a scale of 0 to 10, how high is your self-esteem and self-confidence right now? Anything above a 5 is fairly healthy, although there is room for some improvement. And anything less than a 5 is possibly a sign that you'd benefit from giving your self-esteem some much needed attention. Without a healthy self-esteem, emotional instability is practically guaranteed in our lives. That applies whether your self-esteem is too high or too low. For example, each time someone calls us hurtful names, especially those we call ourselves, the remarks flow into what I call our reservoir of suffering. And at the bottom of this reservoir is our self-esteem. It just sits there minding its own business. But as each new hurt gets poured on top, that self-esteem is crushed by the sheer weight and pressure bearing down on it. For example, each time we're rejected, perhaps by a potential date that we're keen on or an application for a new job, the combined effect of these slurs and put downs can be incredibly demoralizing. And as I said in the previous video, when they come from those closest to us, we tend to accept them as being true. And that definitely includes things we tell ourselves. So much like a shipwreck at the bottom of the ocean, our self-esteem is confined to the depths of our despair. Commercial divers, though, lift precious artifacts from the depths of the sea to the surface by attaching buoyancy aids to help with the lifting. So it is with salvaging your own self-esteem, one of the most precious cargoes you will ever possess. Your self-esteem can float, even fly again. Salvaging a self-esteem that has been damaged can take some time and requires a concerted effort on your part, especially when you consider how many forces are at work to push it down again and again. Positive repetition is the key to improving your self-esteem. Create an environment for yourself that nurtures you and provides constant reinforcement by the constant repetition of more empowering thoughts and beliefs. Low self-esteem affects your relationship with others, your physical and mental health, and your attitudes towards sex, either turning you off sex entirely or leading to a sex addiction. It can also lead to eating disorders, drug or alcohol abuse, and stress. And with stress comes headaches and stomach aches, accompanied by a recurring sense of feeling overwhelmed. Constant tiredness and wanting to sleep or just lie down during the day are all symptoms of stress. Sleep is thought of as an escape. If your self-esteem has been eroded over a long period, it's almost certainly worth seeking professional help though. Sadly, after years of being put down or being made to feel bad about themselves, many people develop a very sad coping strategy. They learn to put themselves down before anyone else can get in first. By doing this, they fool themselves into believing that they've insulated themselves from the hurt of others, but it's the equivalent of punching themselves in the face. So many men and women with low self-esteem beat themselves up constantly, creating invisible, deep-rooted bruises and emotional scarring. One thing people with poor self-esteem seem to be absolutely sure about is just how useless they are. To prove the point, have you ever tried and failed to tell anyone else how fantastic they are, but they refuse to believe it? Unfortunately, they've heard insults and put down so often from someone who professes to love and care about them that must be true, right? Wrong. But your inner critic often takes their side and agrees with these put downs. On the other hand, accepting praise, however true, could therefore mean they've been wrong about themselves for so many years. But even though they're not true, we believe them. We all have an inner voice, and this voice can be supportive or destructive. The inner voice of those with low self-esteem tends to become their most savage and vicious critic. If you're thinking right now, I don't have an inner voice, well, that was it. Our inner voice should be encouraging, helpful, and supportive. Think of this voice as a potential coach. If you were an international athlete, how well do you think you'd perform if you were constantly told how incapable you were of winning any races or improving on your previous personal best? Who would want a coach like that? But it's surprising how many of us allow our inner voice to drag us down. Its motives, though, are sometimes honourable. This voice exists to help and protect you. Unfortunately, it doesn't always do a great job. Well-meaning it may be, but it can get a lot of things wrong about you. For example, if your inner voice thinks you won't be able to achieve something, it may be negative to the idea of helping you in order to protect you from feeling so bad when, not if, you fail. But that's no help at all. In fact, it's a hindrance, because the voice knows that if you don't try something, you can't possibly succeed. Therefore, the voice proves that it's correct and you're kept in your place. Whatever you do to rebuild your self-esteem, much of that effort will be wasted if you don't redefine the relationship you have with your inner voice. No matter what progress you make in other areas of your life, if your inner voice stays highly critical, it will stop most of your efforts, dragging your self-esteem back down to the bottom of your reservoir of suffering, where it may believe your self-esteem belongs. You are the result of all your thoughts, all your reactions and responses to whatever has happened in your life so far. You are the sum of all the decisions you've made and all those decisions you may have been too afraid to make. That voice has been with you for so long, you've probably never questioned the accuracy of anything it's ever said to you or its motives. Your inner voice can be your own personal ambassador, but often it's an assassin. What scripts has your inner critic used against you, perhaps for years? Does it tell you what you aren't capable of? Why you don't deserve to be happy? How and why you're unworthy of anything better? Why you deserve any abuse that you receive? Now, this voice will often repeat all of the negatives you've heard from others in the past. Sometimes that voice will make it impossible for you to succeed in order to ensure that it is right and you are wrong. That critic can become a toxic dump. The words it continues to use could have been poisoning your psyche for a very long time. How often does it express itself so forcibly that it sounds like it's stating facts about you when they're only opinions? How often have you challenged what it said to you? And how often has it told you not to confront anyone else because you will end up feeling bad or worse than you do already? There's no actual certainty that anything will ever happen, but we blindly accept whatever this critic tells us as fact. If it's never challenged, your inner critic will govern the decisions you think you are making, and ultimately it creates a life for you that inevitably proves your inner critic is correct. This inner voice routinely interprets a situation or something someone says and persuades you to respond in a particular way. And that voice has perfected the art of making everything sound so true and reasonable. Your reactions may not be based on the reality of your situation. Your inner critic merely assigns a meaning to the situation that may or may not be correct. It could be based on wildly inaccurate assumptions. Sometimes your inner voice will even tell you what other people are thinking about you. But this voice does not have telepathic powers. It's probably wrong, but again, we never seem to question or challenge the accuracy of anything it says to us. So ask yourself this: how much does your inner voice run your life right now? Does it keep reminding you of everything you got wrong in the past? How often does that voice stop you from enjoying your moments? What you think and what you do based on your thinking has a massive effect on whether you undermine or enhance your self-esteem. It's really worth knowing what effect your thinking is having on yourself. It's not what others tell you, it's how you decide to interpret what they say that matters more. We all like to imagine we think logically. However, our thinking often gets distorted to reinforce what we already believe, and those beliefs are not always correct. They are not always healthy. In fact, some of them are downright harmful to us. Learning to recognize and decide what you allow your inner critic to tell you can help move you forward and improve your self-esteem. I'll go into more detail about taking back control of your inner critic in the next video in this playlist. Have a great day.